go to Canberra. Peter Dutton has confirmed his intention to let the government's revamped Stage 3 tax cuts go through unchanged. Have a listen to what he said today.
Prime Minister's made this change for his own political survival. We're supporting this change, not to support the Prime Minister's lie, but to support those families who need help now.
Labor is banking on bracket creep. $28 billion of it we know from their own Treasury documents. We will take to the next election strong tax reforms in keeping with the Stage 3 tax cuts.
So you can tell Peter Dutton there trying to stay on message that it's about the Prime Minister's lack of integrity, his broken promise. They'll support help for middle-income families. Now listen to Jim Chalmers, because remember, it was the government that broke a promise they'd made more than 100 times not to change the already legislated Stage 3 tax cuts. Now listen to him trying to flip the narrative.
The opposition leader called for an election on a policy that he is now voting for. That would be a pretty strange election, Mr. Speaker.
You've got to give it to the government, Liz. They've got some hide, don't they? They break a promise and then they try and convince us that, oh, no, they're the integrous ones. It's the opposition who've broken a promise because they are now waving these things through.
Well, I think they're just pointing out the obvious hypocrisy. And it is quite hypocritical of Dutton to say, oh, this is all about political survival. That's why Albanese has done this. You're supporting it for your political survival. Let's be real here. The measure has proved popular. You went to your party room and everyone agreed, yeah, well, we kind of got to get on board because it's polling so well. Who are we to say no? So now the Liberals have to come up with, and clearly this is going to be their new line going forward, they had to come up with an excuse, a reason to be like, despite all the bashing we've done over this, we are now supporting the tax cuts. And as Dutton said, he's supporting the change to support families. But that's why Albanese made the change, to support families. So really the point of difference on this issue is all but completely ruined for the opposition, if you ask me.
But isn't it the case that if Dutton opposes it, then the government negotiate with the Greens and then we get a really bad deal? So I don't think it's a lack of integrity or a backfoot.
Well, if you're saying that Labor would have gotten them regardless by negotiating them with the Greens, why did the Libs fold at all?
Well, because politically they can't, which is the point.
Exactly. So it's for political survival.
It could have been a win either way for Albanese, whether this got up or not. Because if it doesn't get up, it's a ready-made campaign. The Libs or the Greens denied us the opportunity to give you the tax cuts.
But we tried.
So it blunts their cost of living attack.
So there's that campaign.
Yeah.
Or you get it up and you say, we delivered the tax cut to people on the lower end of the scale. I mean, Dutton really had little choice but to fall into line on this. And what he's tried to set up today is the have your cake and eat it too situation, where he says, OK, we'll deliver this tax cut here. We understand that it's a break of the Stage 3 tax cut promise. But come next election, we'll come up with a better plan that we'll institute if we get in, which is fair enough. I mean, you cannot be seen to be denying low-income families an extra bit of tax or, a tax cut, right? A bit of extra money in their pocket. That would just be political suicide to say,
exactly.
Nah, we're not going to let you have it. So they've taken the opportunity, said, sure, you can do it, but we'll come up with something better further down the line, which I think is probably the best.
But all of that just makes you even more cynical about the Albanese government, right? I don't think it makes you think that, gee, Dutton has done the wrong thing. It just makes you realise the Albanese government not only liars, but they're incredibly cynical. They're playing everybody. It's $15 a week to wedge the opposition.
Sure. I get that. It's not a great deal, but it still seems to be selling well. And that's really all that matters. When it comes down to it, all that matters is that the public are liking what you're telling them. But they will take into account the broken promise thing, but they've taken that into account with every other Prime Minister we've had. I mean, John Howard told us we'd never have a GST and then he instituted one. And sure, he took a hit at the ballot box, but people look back on John Howard, and I'm not suggesting that Albanese is any way John Howard, but he spent the political capital, took the hit, and is now regarded as one of the best Prime Ministers we've ever had.
Okay, so
they all make mistakes and they all break their word. As I said, the 2014 Tony Abbott, his first budget was like, lost count of the broken promises in that one. Bad man? No. But definitely broke several promises his very first budget. So it happens so, sadly, it happens so often in politics that it's really not an election winning or losing issue unless the promise was of such enormity and had such a terrible fallout, which obviously this one isn't.
Okay, so here's the other thing that really annoys me about Albanese at the moment. He's going around telling everybody we're legislating tax cuts for everybody, so because they're really fighting the cost of living crisis. But at the same time, petrol excise just went up. So we're now paying an extra 1.1 cents per litre on our fuel. So out of every litre of fuel you buy, you pay 49.6 cents to the government. Now, if the Albanese government was serious about doing something about cost of living, they would do as Scott Morrison did, where they would either cut or freeze or both the excise. So Albanese gives with one hand, then he takes away with the other, and you'd be paying a lot more to the government in fuel than you're getting back with $15 a week with their tax cuts.
I know, and it would be an immediate change. And also you've had the alcohol excise has gone up this week as well, which is the most important one to me, of course. But as Paul was explaining on his program before, and he had a bottle of Bundaberg rum, 63% of the cost of that rum is taxed straight out of your pocket into the hands of the government. And if you're struggling to get by, it's those little things that help, you know, you look forward, I'm going to be able to afford a bottle of wine or a bottle of rum this week or whatever, so that your miserable life actually has a bit of joy in it. And then you go down to the bottle shop and find they're slugging you an extra $5 to put into Albo's pocket that takes away 5 of the $10 he gave you out of the other hand.
Well, I'm not drinking as much as you because I don't have such a miserable life.
Oh, hang on.
But go back
that was a low.
Go back to fuel excise for a second. They're talking about the supermarkets, right? We want to reduce the cost of groceries. It's the supermarkets. Well, if they got rid of the fuel excise, or at least, you know, stopped increasing it in line with inflation, that would reduce transport costs, which would make an immediate difference
there's so many
to grocery
simple,
costs.
practical measures. Something as small as just knock the GST off bread and milk. Eggs.
Yeah.
Little things that you could do to be like, you know what, Australian public, I'm not saying it's going to be billions of dollars a week back in your pocket, but we're doing little measures to make life just a bit more affordable for you, as opposed to, I robbed the rich to give to the poor. Call me Robin Hood. Meanwhile, all your taxes are going up so much that $15 is already spent.
And by the way, James, the reason I drink so much is because I have to work with you.